Morning. We're here to entertain you. Yeah. Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Vita, magonjwa, tumechoka, pahali pa kustarehe hatuoni, kilio ni paka kila siku. Nani wetu wa kutusaidia? Ona, kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Korona ngai unyokoli epasi tolembi, mukayo na yo ekomiso moseko. Okolo kanisa bilaka na yo. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Uongo na utawala tumechoka, ambao ya wale tulikaribisha nyumbani. Chakula kulala tulichangia, leo hii wamekuwa maadui. Ona, kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Unyokoli pepasi nalembi, mukano na yo ekomisa maseko. Okolo kanisa bilaka ayo. Kumbuka Kongo yetu Baba, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Korona, kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Kumbuka yale tuliyopitia. Thank you very much. This is an emotion song for me. It's called Kumbuka. The title of it is Psalm 243, which is a chord of my country, Congo. It's a prayer. We've been going through a lot of time of wars in Congo right now. And so I'm just asking God, please remember the country. We've been in elections right now, 2 months ago, and there is hope that things will move so well. The next song I'm going to play for you right now, it's called Wasia. Those are words of wisdom which are taught by my parents. Everywhere you go, behave, live like a human being, respect everybody, regardless of their race, their height, where they're coming from. And that wisdom will carry you at a very beautiful place, and you will see the light and success. Kugombana sina way, mchezo la kutaniana sipendi. Chukua yote, wataka nendo zako, amani na kimya natakaye. Sina muda la kugombana di. Kugombana sina way, mchezo la kutaniana sipendi. Chukua yote, wataka nenda zako, amani na kimya natakaye. Sina muda la kugombana Wazazi walinieleza, mtoto we, angalia marafiki uzoea, chunga usije ukapotea, mwisho wake uwe kilio. Dunia kweli kuna mambo Wazazi walinieleza, jaja we, angalia marafiki uzoea, chunga usije ukapotea, mwisho wake uwe kilio. Dunia kweli kuna mambo yeah. Mazarau, vita, ugomvi, udanganyifu, usije ufuatilie. Nenda pole pole kama mwendo wa kobe, usije ukaumie. Mazarau, vita, ugomvi, udanganyifu, usifuatilie ndugu. Nenda pole pole kama mwendo wa kobe, usije ukaumie ndugu. Sitaki maneno, sitaki ugomvi, ngoma tuwahara wataka nataka ukimya pekee. Naringi kimya, kimya kimya ngainga linga kapadio kangai. Suma kuba 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 chaka kuba Sitaki maneno, sitaki uko ingoma, tuwala wataka die, nataka ukimya peke yako. Sitaki maneno, sitaki maneno. Thank you very much. I said before, Jaja Bashingezi is my name. I'm from Democratic Republic of the Congo, and precisely in the eastern part. 1997, everybody knows, we had a war, and in my province, after the genocide of Rwanda in 1993, the province of Kivu became a very unstable region. And me at that time, we were finishing university with my colleagues, and we started writing songs of occupation. And because people were started being kidnapped and killed as well, we had to denounce what was happening. And musician became also a trigger. And that was the reason which actually pushed me to leave. We left with my colleagues, the entire band, crossed to Goma. Reaching Goma, it was the same thing. We could not stay there. Finally, we had to make a decision. Should we move forward or go back? And half of the band said, you know, for us, we are going back. And I said, we'll move forward. I went and I decided with my colleagues, let's move forward. And the only way to do it, I got a guy who was a businessman. He told us, you guys, if you want to go to Uganda, I'm here to help. If you pay me $4, I will put you on a truck. And the next day, you'll find yourself in Kampala. And we knew Uganda at that time with Idi Amin, the history, HIV and AIDS. And us from Congo, we could not speak a word of English at all. And we were like, what are we going to do there? But finally, we decided. And then I had with me, I had carried my guitar and my tiny little small bag with my colleagues, the musicians. So we were on a truck in a dusty road for a day, driving on that pickup and reach Kampala around 11:30 in the night. No clue, no idea. And I remember that guy had told me, if you reach in Kampala, there is one club, only one. The club is called Club California. If you reach there, then you will know, you meet the people, the right people, that's what he meant. The reason why he said Club California, because it's one of the famous clubs where Congolese musicians were playing. And he knew we were musicians. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hang on this and the phone number. Reaching in Kampala, we started asking people, do you know where California is? They told us, are you musicians? If you want us to show you where California is, play something. So we'll play a little bit. They were like, oh, let's show you. It's 15 minutes from here. Just go. You found the club up there. We're like, really? I said, yes. So we moved. We reached at California Club. It was a booming music of Congolese rumba. And I knew when I heard Lingala, this is it. So we reached at the gate, we found this bouncy guy. He told us, what do you guys want to... We said, we're musicians, we want to come, and we're looking for people in here. And then he said, are you from Congo? We said, yes. He let us in. To cut the story short, that was the beginning of our life. But the next 3 days, we realized that, you know what, we're illegally in Uganda. We have to find a way of living there. People told us, you need to go and report to the police. And then there, we will proceed. We went the next day, report to the police. We were sent to the UNHCR. We gave our names there. The next day, we were sent in the refugee camp. And that's where I was. And I reached there. I could not believe the life which was in there. You can imagine, Rwandese were coming. We hosted Rwanda people in our country. And they were in a refugee camp in Congo. And then I found myself being in the same situation in Uganda. And it was very, very difficult. I could not stay there. And the sound of this wood, you know, could not allow me to stay in there. I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to go back to Kampala. Finally, I went back to UG, to Kampala City. I started performing music. And then I realized, you know what, I'm graduated from a university, college, I need to find my way here. What I used to do, in the morning I would go to Makerere and learn English. In the afternoon, I became a teacher. I was like a freelance teacher, so I would teach French to some guys who are working in a bank. We meet, you know, every day, 3 days a week. But they will pay me. And I knew, you know, that was another extra income. And the evening, I'm in a club. Yeah, so that was my routine, singing. That was my life. And then from there, I knew, okay, if this is it, let me perfect the gift I have, and we'll see what's going to happen. And in 2008, I relocated in the United States. And so the next song I'm going to sing, it's called A Refugee. It's actually my story, and I'm missing home. Oh, my home, my hometown, still I do remember to find myself in a foreign land. I guess I need to adjust. Run away from the war, did not have any chance. To find myself in a refugee camp, I guess I need to accept. I still remember ndani ya roho yangu mawazo mpaka wewe. Oh, my hometown, I still remember ndani ya roho yangu mawazo mpaka wewe. After so many years, I know I will look like a stranger. One day I will go back to see my people. After so many years, I know I will look like a stranger. Oh, my hometown, I still remember. Mpaka we. Oh, my hometown, I still remember. Ndani ya roho yangu mawazo mpaka we. Oh, my hometown, I still remember. Ndani ya roho yangu mawazo mpaka we. Thank you. Hey guys, having fun? This instrument is called kalimba. In my country, it's called likembe, and I got it from Uganda. And it reminds me of home. And every time when I play it, I feel connected to the memory and the rhythms from home. And so there is no lyrics. I'm just going to sing, because that's how we used to sing in Africa. My mom used to sing. You won't hear any single word. But there was something behind the voice and the instrument as well. You're just going to enjoy it. There's courage. Come with me. Na 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 mi o potate come. Susola pama. Sikia. Come with me. Ole ayo kate apo. Susola malina. Come with me. Chuayo te wapitiat. Mbulu wanatala. Jina lako nani maskini mama? Aseme maskini hawezi kupata hela. Oh, kweli ile. Angalia mbali zaidi, watoto, vijana, wazee, tafuta mahali pa kupumuzikia. Mwendo ni mrefu, safari kweli ni ndefu. Yaloko seno, twataka kupumuzika. Wayese kono, twataka mahali pa kupumuzikia. Walese koko, twataka mahali pa kupumuzikia. Yeah. Merci beaucoup. This is the last song, and I want you guys to sing with me. I'm going to give you a chorus. Mambo bado, ah. Mambo bado, ah. Hold it that. Mambo bado, ah. Mambo bado, ah. It's going to be Q&A. Mambo bado. I don't hear anything. Please sing. Mambo bado, ah. Mambo bado, ah. Go. Mambo bado, ah. times of people moving all around you there. How many times have been moving all around you? You've been standing up of your thought. Jirubalinga na bingalo kulivolo mombande. Simiboli malenga nikolo kulingo mopala. Irambabimba na nikolo kulikolo mombande. Sikalimbo lopomo kulikolo mopala. Mambo bado, let me hear your voice. Mambo bado, oh yeah, Mambo bado, let me hear your voice. Mambo bado, hakuna matata Mambo bado, hakuna matata mama. Mambo bado, mambo bado, mambo bado, mambo bado, hakuna matata hakuna matata mama. Hey, hakuna matata kofi. San san salandana. Mambo bado. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hakuna Matata Kofi.
Yes, Hakuna Matata.
It's a great pleasure to have you all here this morning for this World Refugee Day celebrations. We are connected to Kenya, to Ghana, and to Malawi, and globally via World Bank Live. So our participants on World Bank Live, welcome to all of you. We hope you are all enjoying the music. We're going to start the program now with opening remarks by Carlos Felipe Jaramillo, World Bank Country Director for Kenya, Uganda, and Ghana. So let's go to Kenya.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody in Washington, and good afternoon to those here in Nairobi and connected in Africa. I am joined here by a group that includes first, some refugees, people who have been refugees and who we have been privileged to listen to throughout the day here in Nairobi. We are also joined by representatives of organizations that work with refugees. And we thank them very much for their work. And we also are joined by delegates from UNHCR. In a minute, we will have here, here she is, Ms. Fatia Abdallah, who is the UNHCR representative here for Kenya. And I just wanted to express first my gratitude to everybody connected for participating on today with us in the World Refugee Day celebrations. As you know, on this day, we remember those who have had to undergo the suffering of leaving their home in fear for their lives. We express admiration for their bravery, for their resilience, and for the determination to look for a place to make a better life for themselves. We know from UNHCR statistics that we have now more than 70 million refugees and internally displaced persons, and 25% of those are hosted in Africa. Here in the countries of our country management unit managed out of Nairobi, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, we host over 1.9 million refugees. And we want to thank the citizens of these countries and the governments and the organizations that work with these refugees that have offered them help and sanctuary in these countries. It is very unfortunate that When people become refugees, our studies show that they are more likely to fall into poverty situations, and they find it harder to escape poverty situations. We also know from experience that in some places the arrival of refugees can cause strains and tensions with local communities. So we at the World Bank Group, in fulfilling our global mandate on poverty reduction, we are giving more and more attention to identifying the needs of the refugees and also the host communities, making sure that they are included in poverty alleviation approaches. We're particularly proud that in the latest round of fundraising for IDA, the IDA 18, our shareholders, our funders have approved the creation of a sub-window specifically for refugee and host communities that provides additional grant financing for those governments that host refugees to bring opportunities for both refugees, their families, and host communities. And we're very pleased to be working with many governments in Africa that are financing policy reforms and new projects for refugees and host communities. We have invested now almost $300 million with this new window in this short period of time, the last less than 2 years, in both Uganda and Rwanda, and we hope to do so in Kenya. We're also working to support host communities. We're helping them create jobs, balance their budgets, improve their infrastructure, and have an environment that supports innovation and entrepreneurship and attracts investment so that they can serve their own citizens, their own families, and also the refugees and their families. We are financing the governments of Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Djibouti with a project that we call Dr. DIP. It's called Development Response to Displacement Impacts Project. It seeks to improve access to services, expand livelihood opportunities, and enhance environmental management for local communities affected by the presence of large numbers of refugees. We also believe in the World Bank Group of comprehensive responses that strengthen the national systems, particularly in education and health, to ensure that refugees have access to those systems. We also believe that refugees and host communities will thrive when there are supportive policies in place for their inclusion. These kinds of development policies and instruments complement the humanitarian responses that are also essential and that we see coming from agencies such as led by UNHCR and others. Over the past few years, I'm glad to tell you that the international community has been shifting in its approach to forced displacement by complementing the humanitarian response with greater emphasis on mid- and long-term development needs. But still, even with this shift and with resources like the ones I mentioned from IDA 18, we're still unable to deliver and respond to all the needs. This crisis is very large. It has grown over the last year. The needs are immense. And this situation is not just in Africa, also in my home region of Latin America, in South Asia, and we must ramp up action. I am also very happy to report that as World Bank Group, IFC, our private sector arm has gotten more and more involved and taken an active role in trying to first demonstrate how there are huge potential private sector investments and markets in refugee areas. And the IFC is moving towards attracting more investments from the private sector to help both refugees and host communities. So, as we commemorate World Refugee Day today, we should take a moment to pause and reflect on the magnitude of the challenge we have in front of us. Today we are here together. Let us learn from each other, for we cannot afford to do otherwise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Felipe. We still have a few comments from Kenya. We'll take like a few comments from Fathia, and then we'll hear from one of the refugee girls shortly, just for sure.
Okay. Thank you so much. I must say I am rushing for somewhere else. So if you see me disappear, I apologize for that. But I just want to really to thank the World Bank here in Kenya for organizing this very meaningful event for the refugees and for us in UNHCR as well, and also partner, because everyone is busy, and to take time to bring refugees here in this room and listen to them and be their voice, I think is something exceptional. And I really want to appreciate that from the World Bank here in Kenya. And globally, we have a wonderful partnership with the World Bank in terms of how we go for solution for refugees and communities hosting them. And that's really happening. We have a good model in Kalube in one of the camps here in Kenya called Kakuma. And Kalube really is a model of operationalization of the Global Compact for refugees in partnership with the private sector and development actors, which the World Bank is very much represent. So I just want to say thank you to the World Bank and our donors as well. In terms of Kenya hosts still 500,000 refugees from 2 countries, as you know, who are among the highest countries of producing asylum refugees, which is Somalia and Uganda. So Kenya is a host country and been doing. Sorry, what did I say? Yeah, it is from South Sudan. You know, my mind, I am originally from Sudan, and my mind about Sudan a lot, what's happening in Sudan itself. And Sudan is actually a country which hosts a large number of refugees, with Uganda as well in this region, along with Kenya as well. So we hope the situation will not produce refugees again. So I just wanted to say today, my reflection here, the High Commissioner has already reiterated that. He underscores with appreciation that many generous countries and communities are still very welcoming, and new partners from the development and the private sector are offering investment and expertise towards improving protection and solution. And this is very, very important. He also recognized the challenges we're facing today. So from the refugees who we met today, through the World Bank, bringing them here, the most important thing, refugees are not a burden, but comes with potential. It's not about money, it's about self-reliance and partnership. Refugees are partners with us as well, and their partnership is very powerful. And host communities is very important to support, and also support the countries who are hosting refugees and countries of origin. The CRRF is a platform for our partnership, and it is very much here in Kenya, is the education, health, livelihood is mentioned as well as very, very important, and how to proceed with development which bring change and bring solution for refugees. Humanitarian is there, but can only go so long. Thank you so much, and I have to go, but I really want to thank. Yeah, I said that in the end, I want to thank the World Bank here in Kenya, and then, is it Washington? Yes. Yeah, for all your support. Thank you so much. And
Should speak for 2 minutes. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Bashab. I'm from Eritrea. I fled from my country because of being a Christian. I came to Kenya because of war, and actually I came to Kenya with my mom after my dad died. Coming to Kenya wasn't an easy journey, and coming to Kenya, we didn't have any place to sleep or to eat. We were sleeping at UNHCR, and after that, one of the Good Samaritan helped us and to get a place called Refugee. After Refugee helped me to get an education and helped me to get a lot of things. So I would like to thank Refugee, and after that, thank you. And actually, I had nothing to say. Enough.
Thank you very much from Nairobi. I think we are done. If you see us moving out, it's because it's getting really late here. Thank you so much. Over to DC.
Well, thank you very much, Kezia, and all the colleagues in Nairobi. We know it's quite late, but you stayed on till this time. And so without further ado, we move quickly to Malawi to hear very quickly from them what they've been deliberating on the issue of investing in Africa's refugees, improving access to education, healthcare and skills. What role for the international community? 2 quick minutes. Thank you very much. Trezor, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, good. Good. We are two of us that will speak, so I will give first the floor to my colleague, Claudine, so that she can say something about the challenges, and then I will talk about recommendations.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Claudine Hatungimana, and here in Malawi, talking about Dzaleka Refuge Camp. I'll start with the challenges on the side of education. Mostly in education, we are having too many population, so we have few schools. So you find others that they don't have the access to go to school, and where we find some maybe opportunities for others to learn, like let me give an example of diploma, but there are only few courses that are being offered, such as there is business, education, and as well social work. So most of them, they do have dreams of becoming who they want to be, but due to the offer which is being given out, they what they never thought of being in life. And let me talk on the side of skills. There's very limited opportunities for the refugees in the camp. They're having skills like art, there's also maybe modeling and so many things. But it's only been done in refuge in Dzaleka, where they don't have a chance to go out or a chance to show what they can be able to do. So it's like what they have, it's not really being expressed out. And let me talk of legal limitation. It's whereby we see like there are no job opportunities. So these are only a few points that I had on the challenges that we are facing here in Malawi. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so she's talking about the challenges, and most of the challenges are caused by this, as Claudine has been saying, about legal limitation. Legal limitation is in the sense that refugees in Malawi, they have to stay in the refugee camp, which is there since 1994. And some people were born in the refugee camp, and they are obliged to always be in the refugee camp without moving. And they can access education. They can, like primary, secondary school, and we now have some online universities offering courses at Dzaleka. And after that, people are still blocked in that prison. So they can't access any other opportunities or job opportunities and even develop as human beings. So what I would recommend would be for the international community to look also deeply into that, and also see if there is a way to invest into refugees' entrepreneurship, talents, and creativity, by also giving them access to microloans and to finances, so that they can be able to grow and contribute. And the second one would be in Malawi would be
Trezor, I think yes, we've heard quite a lot from Malawi, and we have people waiting in Ghana. So we'll go to Ghana, and so you can yes, and so there will be a panel discussion, and so there will be another opportunity to ask questions. So we'll come back to you later. So Ghana, please come in from Ghana. Mr. Kofi Anani, are you there? Ghana, I think you are muted. Can you come in? We cannot hear you from Ghana. Yeah, sorry, we cannot hear you from Ghana, so we will have to move on to the next program, the next item on the program, which... very badly, but can you try and do it? Yeah, try and do it very quickly. No, sorry. Ghana, we cannot hear you. So what I would recommend that you do is to send your recommendations to me, and I will share it here with everybody else. So we will move on to the next item on the program, which is a photo presentation by Dorte, lead economist, World Bank, and an award-winning photographer. Thank you very much, Dorte.
Thank you, Kofi. Thank you for everybody online and here in the audience. There's something with the screen. There we go. Can we get thank you? Today is a big day. It's an important day. It's World Refugee Day. Every day is World Refugee Day for 25 million people on the planet. 6 million of these people live in Africa. 6.3 million individuals. It's children, it's women, and it's men. The majority of the people in Africa that are refugees are children. 57% of the refugees are children, 52% are mothers. These are the latest data from UNHCR that came out yesterday. As you have heard from the presentations that we were listening to from the refugees in the different countries and the music, many refugees are extremely talented. One of the most talented people I have met is Fanny. Fanny is a refugee from Central African Republic. She's a mother of 4. But something that the World Bank understands is when people have creativity, have talent. Because Fanny is also an entrepreneur. She has a micro startup in her new home. And she produces fresh pasta for the local market. Fanny produces corn behind her home. She harvests it. She turns it into flour, and eventually make pasta out of it. A whole value chain on site. Here she's drying the pasta with her 2 children, and her 2 older boys help her sell it in the market. Fanny has many talents. She doesn't only produce fresh pasta, she also produces fast food. She produces beignet every day, and here she's frying the beignet that her boys also will take out to sell. So when Fanny, she's producing the beignet, let me take you around the camp. This is the refugee camp in Chad where she lives. There's about 3,000 people living in the camp. most of them have fled from Central African Republic. Not all camps in Africa look alike. We heard from the Commission in Kenya about Kalabilye, refugee camp in the northeast Kenya, and this is Suzanne that is carrying grains after she arrived from South Sudan. And this is a new camp. I'll get back to that in a little bit and tell you more about what is happening. One of the older camps in the same arid, northeast, remote area in Kenya is Kakuma. It's a bustling camp that has been existed for quite some time. Djibouti also hosts a lot of refugees. They're a small country, and it's also arid. Here is a whole refugee camp in Djibouti. If you move to southern Africa, we arrive in Zimbabwe. And this is the Tongagara refugee camp in Zimbabwe. It's a more temperate area where they have more opportunities for growing food, and I will get to that later on. Finally, in Uganda. Uganda has a very generous policy toward refugees. They don't provide land for camps as such, they provide land for settlement. They provide land for every single refugee. These refugees that live in the southern part of Uganda in Nakivale settlement, they all have a piece of land that is 50 times 50 meters to grow food on. You'll see more of that in a little bit. In West Africa, the situation are sometimes dire. This is a makeshift encampment in Niger. This is very close to Lake Chad area, where people that are fleeing the violence from Boko Haram, they live. Children have dreams. They have dreams, they have aspirations, like all of us. These children come from family that have lost their home, their family members, friends, community, their livelihoods, and probably many other things that we can't even imagine. And then they have been forced to flee their home country. But children are super creative, and wheels are something that all kids throughout Africa, they like. And man, they can spin them. Also, a discarded string can be turned into an afternoon of joy. This is, for example, Somali kids that live in Uganda. Don't we all like a dip when it's hot? School break, there's a water hole, and we jump in, particularly when we have had a long school year. You know, when you can't find anything to make into something, you will make it yourself. You will act, you will sing. And this is what these people and these kids are doing in Chad. Refugee camps is more than a place where people live. It has a bustling economy. An economy that thrives because people bring things in. Here's bananas that is brought in to Nakivale. Some bring solar panels in because everybody needs electricity. Here, Fatima has her store. This is in Nakivale refugee camp. She sells tomatoes and onion locally produced to her friends that live in the camp and many others that need nutritious food. Other camps like Karabilye that we heard about before, they actually have a marketplace. And this marketplace is one of the most incredible marketplaces, and I wish it was in my neighborhood. This is a place where refugees can have a stall where they sell the item that refugee needs, and sometimes they employ the local host community members. Other times, it's the host community member that would employ refugees. And it is a fun place to go, and you find some real bargain there. So if you're ever in the area, I suggest that you swing by. And there's also a really nice kids playing outside. It's not only about shopping street and shopping markets. There's also places outside camps where refugees, they work with host communities. And this is a picture from from Burundi, where refugees and host community are working together in this store. One way that many refugees gets around is by bike. And when you have a flat tire, you cannot always fix it right there. So you need to take it to a bike store. So of course that can be found in a camp too. This is Kakuma refugee camp, where they have a lot of work because it's a huge camp. We also need clothes. We all like to have clothes that are not ripped, so it can get fixed. And this is some of the things that the tailors can do very well. But even more so, there's fashion designers. These fashion designers can produce the most incredible thing. And if I one day meet somebody that's wearing a World Bank dress, I will be proud. This woman, for her birthday, received a dress from her husband that made this beautiful dress with UNHCR. What a reward on World Refugee Days for me to be able to share this beautiful picture with you. And man, don't we all have bad hair days? You know, the refugee camp can also take care of that for us. Because there's beauty parlors, there's barbers, so that's one problem down. This is a picture from Burkina Faso. And Mohammed had fled from the northern part of Mali. He's very talented. He works with metal and he works with leather. I bought this one from him and I cherish it. Every day I put my jewelry from my husband and my son and think about what hardship they have gone through to produce this beautiful box for me. We also get hungry. Food binds us all together, refugees, non-refugees, and this is a refugee in Kakuma refugee camp in northwest Kenya that have fled from, yes. And he is frying fish. He's fled from Eritrea. And here's Fatima, she's producing chips. And trust me, the drivers from UNHCR, they know where to find chips in Africa. So they took me to Fatima. And they are truly some of the best chips I've had in Africa. And the driver said, this is top 3 in Africa. So going back to Fatima, she's busy producing her beignets. And her 2 boys are out selling the first batch. While she was doing so, she was telling me that it's not always that all the beignets are sold. When all the beignets are not sold, that means there's very little income to come in to the household that day. And that leads to food insecurity in her household, nutritious food insecurity. They can eat the beignets, but it's not always the most nutritious food. It lacks the nutrients, it lacks the protein. Many other children spend their time selling because there is no job for the parents. This is in Difa, where these 2 young girls, Emma here is selling peanuts in a construction site. This is not very safe. But if you're a desperate refugee family and you need a little bit of income to feed your family, you go very far. And of course, you've all noticed that the boy is coming back from school. It's not all refugees that eat well. This is some Yemeni refugees in Djibouti, and they have really had a hard time and not being fed. They're undernourished and others are malnourished. This is in Chad, this is children in Zimbabwe. Mothers, they do cook. And Margaret here does everything she can. She knows about nutrition, she knows the protein, she knows the micronutrients are very, very important. And many refugees, actually the majority in Africa, has a background in agriculture, meaning they produce food, they know how to do that, and have some skills they have brought with them from their home country. And this is a mother in Chad that's producing okra next to her home. And here she's drying these okra. Some are more advanced. They have hydroponics to produce food. Hydroponics is a system that is portable. And remember, it's all about having portable technologies because we can only take what is portable with us when we move. So we can take our brains, we can take the education, all the capital that is portable. And here we are in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, in Tongassara camp, where people are have finished a long days of work and now are heading home. They produce beans, and this area here, they produce bananas. And everybody is being taught this kind of skill from a very young age. Coming back to Nakivale refugee camp, where you have a relatively large product to produce, people also harvest. And this is the corn harvest of that year. The refugees, they clean it, and everybody gives a hand. And somebody gotta taste it. I mean, the quality control, the refugees are totally aware of quality control. It's not only crops. Refugees also have livestock. Sometimes it's smaller livestock like goats, like here in Tongassara and Zimbabwe. Sometimes it's a pig. And sometimes there are super talented refugees like this guy from South Sudan that has a whole herd of cows. Others have chicken. But these people in Takuma told me, we did have chickens, but you know, when there's a flood, chickens, they drown. Ducks can swim, so we don't have any more chickens, now we have ducks. The Yemenis are talented in fishery. So many Yemenis try to go to the coast and fish, something that the host community can still learn a lot from. Natural resources are many times scarce, being it land, as we talked about, and particularly arable land, but also water. So refugees spend many hours every day fetching water, and mostly for human use, for drinking, for cooking, for washing, etc. As we heard from previous presentations, education is really key. It's not enough to just learn to read and write, even that it's helpful. In Difa, remember the place that is super arid, that's very close to Lake Chad? There's not a lot of opportunities, but there is one high school here. It's remote. They're being taught by video conference, and there is a couple of teachers that also have fled Boko Haram from northeast Nigeria that teach them. And they are waiting to get their high school diploma. And guess what? I have a special relationship with Fanny here. Fanny wants to be an economist. And I think you can all agree with me that the world needs more good economists, and particularly with the kind of experience that she has had. People communicate with the people that are left behind by mobile phone. They also communicate among themselves. But we should not forget that globally there's only 3% of refugees that are over 60 years of age. So there are a lot of elderly left behind. So this is the way that people and refugees stay in touch with their homelands. And you've got to charge these phones. So it's big business to have a solar panel where you can actually charge your phone at. As I mentioned, many of these areas are drought-prone areas. They're flood-prone, some of them. And cyclone doesn't spare refugee camps. When a cyclone hits, it hits everybody, and some of the most vulnerable in these kind of situations are refugees. This is a picture from Tongassara refugee camp from Cyclone Ida that hit in March, where the vast majority of houses are damaged. They try to fix them, with a little bit of plastic and a brick, but it's not the protection that they need. Some are moving into tents, and UNHCR are doing a fantastic job at providing these things very fast. And of course, there's always somebody that has a little bit of extra resources and start to build back right away. Food security, when this kind of things happen, becomes even a bigger issue, because food prices in these host communities, they go up. They even sometimes lagging the food. And finally, that means that refugees cannot afford to buy, and many times their own crops have actually been destroyed. Here, there's somebody that's trying to get the crops up and going again by getting the irrigation going. Let me, before I end, get back to Fanny. Because when I was talking to Fanny, and the boys have still not come back, she had prepared another batch of dough. And I said to Fanny, what is really your biggest concern? She said, providing nutritious food to my children is a big concern. But the very biggest is the access to education and to quality education. If the children don't get the education that they need, that means that they will not move far and take their families far in life, just like you and I have been taken. So before I end, I would like to ask you all to think hard about 3 things and work with us on these 3 things. First, we need to make sure that all kids get access to high quality education. Second, they need to have access to nutritious food every day. We need that for brains to development. If there is no good or complete brain development, that means they can't take in the education they'll be getting. And let us then give them a hand to have even more skills so they can produce some of these nutritious food at home that they're already doing. We have been working on portable technologies for a while. For example, the hydroponics. We can also produce insects in boxes, produce flour out of that can be mixed with the porridge. So these 3 things. And while I still have the floor, I would like to give a big shout to UNHCR. Thank you for all the work you're doing for the refugees on the planet. And thank you for always being there, night and day, cyclones or not. I also like to thank my colleagues in WFP, and particularly my colleagues that are sitting in the room and are online or not even have time to be here because they're working so hard on making life better for refugees across the planet. Thank you very much.
Doesn't she deserve another round of applause, please? She's taken photos from almost 30 refugee camps globally. This is amazing. Thank you so much. The one phrase that you used that stuck in my mind is talented refugees. Refugees are indeed talented from everything we've seen, but that is why we are standing with them, and that is why we are standing for refugees today. Thank you very much. We move on to the next program, the next item on the program, which is the panel discussion. And we are privileged today to have a very passionate sister who's also been doing interesting work with refugee communities, both in Africa, but also here in the US. And her name is Kim Poole. She's the founder of the Teaching Artist Institute. She'll say a few words about herself, invite the panel, and then we have a discussion. Thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you again, Kofi. Clap one more time for the World Bank Group. I mean, this is really an amazing event. Jaja, your performance earlier was incredible. The photographic essay you just shared with us, right into the lives of the camps that you visited. Again, my name is Kim Poole. I'm a soul fusion performing artist and founding fellow of the Teaching Artist Institute. Our organization has 6 different offices on the continent, and we're using art as a tool for community engagement and community development. We understand the importance of bringing artists to decision-making tables, for empowering local communities to understand the importance of art as a bridge to engage communities like the refugees here. And some of our program participants are in the audience today, and we're so glad that they were able to join us. Wave Willie, thank you for coming. Very important that we engage our young people, and I'm excited that you guys are going to be here today. I want to keep the panel rolling because I know we have World Bank Live, and we definitely want some questions from you guys in the audience today. This is not an opportunity for us to come and tell you everything that we know about everything we've done. We want to get feedback today, and so we're going to make sure that we stick to the point. I want to first bring up Ms. Doherty Verna. Clap as she comes to the stage. An amazing passion and vision. The next panelist, we have our wonderful musician, Jaja. Are you with us still here? Aladi Jaja. Miss Federica Solila, thank you, joining us from the World Bank Development Report. And I was practicing this earlier so that I got it right. Xavier. Xavier? Not Xavier, but Xavier. Thank you. Please join us. Xavier is joining us from Conflict and Violence with the World Bank Group. And next, Matt Reynolds. He's with the UNHCR. Thanks for being here today, Matt. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started. I'd like to start my questions with Ms. Doherty and your amazing photographic essay. I read in your bio that you're actually an agricultural economist, and yet you made sure that you brought these photos into the room today, that you, whenever you've been to over 30 refugee camps, capture the lives of refugees in intimate ways to ensure that we learn the narrative of their lives, of their communities, to see them holistically. What motivates you? Why?
I work in development. Development is my life. And the refugee crisis that we have been facing in the last decades is part of this. But I worked in Syria. I went there 13 times. And then when the war broke out, it was the time where many of the people have taught me a lot of things, like Arabic and about the culture and, of course, about the economy in Syria. So because I travel a lot, both for vacation and also for work, I started to run into refugees that have fled Syria. So it was in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Egypt. And I had already been photographing a little bit before, but then it became sort of a way to document what was going on in their lives. So I took the second summer of the Syrian refugee crisis, I took 5 weeks off, and with my husband, that was on the trip part of it, started in Scandinavia and ended in Lesbos. So simply interviewing refugees, the ones that have arrived, you can imagine the ones that have arrived in Denmark and in Germany. We would all think, and the refugees themselves thought when they were in Lesbos, that this was the best place to arrive and everything was going to be fine afterwards. But it's like an exam, right? When you have finished an exam, you realize that sometimes things are empty and you might not even want to be there, right? The refugees really felt that they got a job in Denmark, they earned 7 times more than they did back in Syria, but they really wanted to be home. So that was what inspired me. So it's a mixture between work and free time, but this is what I do.
It's amazing that you mentioned reality. Art has an amazing ability to help us define reality, see things holistically. My question is, being so close to the communities and in such an intimate way, what would you say was the state of the communities you visited's access to education, health, and skills development? What does that look like within the communities that you photographed?
It's very different depending on the place, and it depends a lot about the resources available, both in camps and outside camps. And we're in a situation where there is simply too little resources. And we all need to step up, maybe get a little bit more out of what we're doing, but we also need to do more, because this is the future of Africa and all the other continent where the refugees they are. UNHCR are doing a fantastic job. There's other organization that is doing the World Bank, as Felipe mentioned, with IDA replenishment, but much more is needed.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you again for the work you do. My next question goes to Mr. Reynolds. Yes, Mr. Reynolds, the UNHCR is always at the forefront of any refugee situation globally. You guys have always done amazing work historically. I know that yesterday you launched your Global Trends report, and it mentions 70 billion refugees around the world. You all really have the pulse on the state of refugees and their livelihoods. Can you speak directly to refugees in Africa? What is the state of refugees and their communities in Africa specifically?
Certainly. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for to the World Bank for hosting this today, and to all of my colleagues who are around the world today. World Refugee Day is an important milestone for us. It's an opportunity for us to take sort of a screenshot of what the film of the entire year, but make a quick shot. And each year we come out with a global trends, which you've just marked with now the highest of ever, over 70 million forcibly displaced in the world. When you look at Africa, I hate to say there's a lot of top 10s of our statistics in Africa. 7 of the top 10 flows of refugees, sources of refugees, are in Africa. And 3 of the top 10 hosting countries are some of the poorer developing countries of Africa. If you look at the density of refugees in a country, 5 of the top 10 are in Africa. And if we look at just the internally displaced, because we often talk about the 25 million refugees, but there are 40 million internally displaced persons as well. These are people who don't cross a border but have to flee for safety and security. 6 of those 10 are in Africa. I think the challenge, particularly not just Africa, but globally, is the refugee crises are getting longer. They're more protracted, they're larger, and solutions are harder and harder to find. So we're finding the emergency sort of initial response that UNHCR provides, sort of that first responder, the emergency, is now morphing and moving more towards also needing to look at the development side as well. As you may know, just recently, in December of 2018, we adopted, the international community, the United Nations, adopted a global compact on refugees. And part of that is a response, a comprehensive framework response. Africa actually is leading in the implementation of that comprehensive refugee response network, 8 African countries. And that response really is looking at an opportunity to look at both the refugees and the hosts, looking at recognizing that when a rising tide brings up all ships together. In the past, many have looked at refugees as almost an imposition. They come in, they're in theory, taking resources, or sometimes are treated differently. The refugee gets a school, but the host community does not. In today's world, particularly as these are more protracted and we're trying to find durable solutions, it's very important to look at a whole community-wide approach. And this is, again, Africa's taking a lead in this, where the opportunities are there for things like the IDA 18 sub-window for refugees that the World Bank is a lead on, in ensuring that communities receive support for education and health, but the entire community receives it, the refugee as well as the host. And the host sees this not as a burden, but in fact as an opportunity for development to occur. So there's a lot going on. Sadly, I wish that our numbers and our trends were going down, but unfortunately, like I said, crises are becoming more protracted and longer.
Wow, thank you. Your report is really thorough. It brings out an interesting point. You mentioned an imposition that many of the host countries sometimes see refugee communities and resettlement as an imposition. But Aladi Jaja, how are you? You're one of my new favorite musicians. Thank you. You spoke earlier about your story, and you mentioned that from Kivu, you resettled ultimately in Uganda.
Yeah.
And we know that Uganda is one of the largest resettlement communities in Africa. And I think that you're a perfect example of why being a benefit to that community as a musician. You mentioned that before you came to Uganda, that you already received advanced education at the university.
Yep.
And once you arrived, you then used that education, but you also used the skills that you had as a musician and as a French teacher or French speaker. And so tell us, what is the importance of refugees having access to education and opportunities to hone those skills that they bring with them as benefits to their new host communities?
Thank you so much for that very wonderful question. Honestly, I could not imagine myself without education in the situation which I was in Uganda. And I realized that, education is very important. Remember prior I said when I was performing, reaching in Uganda, I could figure out, let alone going to the refugee camp, I could figure out other things to do. So I took it upon myself, because I was educated, to start going to Makerere University to learn English. And in an afternoon, I remembered actually that, I have been having all this knowledge, from home. I need to use it. So I became a teacher in the afternoon. And then in the evening, because of the skill I had, I could use it as well. And so there was one joke, sometimes we're finishing performing with some of my colleagues and musicians, and they're paying us. I always had extra money. So they were like, why is it that you're getting money left and right? I said, yeah, I'm teaching somewhere. And because of that education. But also I would like to mention, I guess, 3 things in the refugee camp, how honestly we can be able to help. And I was thinking of 3 points. And then I remember that, while in the shelter, their basic needs to me, which actually needs to be a priority for refugee people: food, shelter, and security. You can imagine a 15-year girl who wants to go outside and won't be able to go to school if she's not secure. And the second thing, probably, it's maybe when we're in the refugee camp, identify these skills. Because once we were in the camp, I still remember we had people who are very brilliant. Some are gifted in crafting, some are gifted in teaching, some are gifted in doing other stuff. And so if we manage to identify these skills and help those people within the camp, live to their potential of their skills they have, instead of just abandoning them, that would be probably a very good thing. What my friend Tresoro was doing in Malawi, I'm sure he was in there with a skill of talent. He decided to create a band. And these people can write songs and start releasing their performance and then go and perform. And the third thing probably to me, I think, is dignity and security, give back to the refugee. We've been treated so wrongly as handover people, and we're there for food, for this and that, and yet we're just normal people. If an opportunity is there, honestly, we can excel like everybody else. That's what I know.
Thank you. I think it's amazing what you said about dignity. See, in the Teaching Artists Institute, art is not, I'm a singer, I sing, but for us, art is not just about the traditional arts. You, Jaja, you sing and you play amazingly. We have the dancers and the painters, but for us, it's about the art of possibility, the art of ideas. And one trait that every refugee community and the refugees within it has perfected is the art of survival. That is an art, resilience, efficacy. Mm-hmm. These are the art forms that allow them to wherever they go, bring those skills with them and creating opportunities for them to utilize those skills. The ones that they've brought is the role of the international community. Yep. It's how host countries can support, best support. I want to bring up Trezor because I think you just mentioned him. Trezor, are you still with us? Is Trezor still with us from Malawi? Can we get him back on? I know that he's also a musician. I wanted to ask him also a question about the benefits of the host communities. Yes?
Hello?
Hi, Trezor.
Can you hear me? Okay, hi.
Yes, Trezor, you're a man after my own heart. They said you're also a musician. Is that
yes,
true,
I'm
Trezor?
A musician, yes, it is. Yeah.
Are you going to sing for us?
Oh, no.
No, not today, maybe later.
Yes, I will do it later. Yeah.
So I know that you're currently living in a Dzaleka refugee camp?
Yes, Dzaleka refugee camp.
Yes.
So I've been living there for 11 years now.
Wow. Amazing. And one of the things you're doing with your art form is you're demonstrating why refugees are beneficial to their host countries. Can you tell us more about these benefits?
Okay, through that, first, as an artist, I've had a lot of chances to tour around Africa and Europe and performed in a few places in the US as well. And so it has been also, first of all, giving an opportunity even to Malawian artists, because when I toured Europe or other African countries, I've been giving an opportunity to other Malawian artists to perform. And apart from that, I'm running a live music venue which benefits to the Malawian community and to refugees as well. And also, I have the biggest festival in Malawi. Actually, the biggest festival in Malawi happens in a refugee camp, and wow. It gives opportunities, to so many artists from all over Malawi, and also to giving an opportunity to refugee artists to shine and showcase their talents, and also a good platform for discovery, and a platform which is bringing so many people. Empowering the economy of people in the refugee camp and people around the refugee camp, in the sense where we have visitors come and stay in people's house and pay for staying, and you have all the businesses and crafts being exposed and people making money. So the festival I organize in the refugee camp is a money stream for the refugee camp and for the surrounding villages. And currently we have 30,000 people that attend the festival, and the economic impact is really tremendous. Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Trezor. What's the name of your festival?
It's called Tumaini Festival. Tumaini, T-U-M-I-N-I. It means hope in Swahili. Hope. And so it's bringing actually hope to Malawi, not to refugees, but it's bringing hope to the whole country. Yeah. Absolutely,
bringing hope to the entire country. I think that art is a natural civic engager. It's so important that we create opportunities for the host communities and the refugee communities to come together on common ground. And your festival sounds like an amazing opportunity for that to happen in Malawi. Thank you for the work you do. I want to move on to Xavier. I think I said that I've been practicing all morning. I know that refugee resettlement or refugee work in general has always been seen as a humanitarian issue. But now we're working on this issue. Here we are with the World Bank Group, and you're representing the World Bank. The World Bank is hosting this event. Tell us, what are some of the developmental challenges that we're finding, and how is the World Bank addressing those issues?
So thank you very much. Thank you for the privilege to sit on this panel with so many distinguished artists. I think there is one key message that I took away from Daughter's picture, which is that refugees are not victims. They're not people expecting aid. They're people. They're persons like you and me. They're people who need to be respected in their dignity, but they're also people who need to be supported as they try to achieve what we all try to achieve, a better life for ourselves, for our families, self-sufficiency, education, health, and everything else. And so as we look at it as a development organization, I think it's first and foremost about rights. It's about the right to stay together as a family. It's about the right to go to school, which is not always granted. It's about the right to work, to open a bank account, to move to a place of your choice, which is not granted in many countries. But without these rights, it's very difficult to conceive of education, health, human capital, development, jobs, self-sufficiency, and so on. It's also about opportunities. I think the statistics is about 70% of refugees live in countries that are not doing well economically, that are doing less well than global average economically. And in these countries, 70% of the refugees living in these countries live in regions that do less well than the national average. So you're talking about people who live in lagging regions in poor countries. Not a great place to find a job, not a great place to get an education, not a great place to restart your life. And so unless we help these regions, unless we help these communities to grow, to get better services, to get better access to jobs, it will be very, very difficult for refugees to restart their life in dignity. And it's about, as Matthew was saying, I think it's about host communities, right? Because it's very inconceivable at the local level to say, well, I'm going to help person A, but not person B. I'm actually going to send this kid to school, but not that kid to school, and then to hope that this will create an environment where people can grow. Obviously, this is going to generate tensions, and frankly, obviously, this is unfair. And I think there is increasingly a recognition that we need to help people based on vulnerability in the places where they live, rather than based purely on status. Now, where development comes to play is that all this is, at the end of the day, about what we call in our jargon policies. It's about the right for kids to go to school. It's about having the right curriculum. It's about having the teachers paid. It's about having the teachers trained properly to deal with this population. And that's where we feel that we as a development institution can complement what our humanitarian colleagues are doing by working with the government to help, in this case, strengthen the education system so that better services can be provided. And it's about money, because these things are not cheap. These things do not come for free. And that's where we, as a World Bank, can also help by providing the resources needed for the government to do this. But finally, it's about partnerships, because it's about many, many actors working together, from the humanitarian community, the artist community, the government, the CSOs, all of us together. And I guess that's where the Global Compact on Refugees that was approved last December provides us with a very, very nice framework to pull all these energies together and to try to do better as a group than we would individually do.
Absolutely. I love the concept of human capital and the report that you've done there. It really helps to articulate the language beyond just the art form. I know that in the Teaching Artists Institute, we say the human resource is the greatest resource, and providing a tangible, actionable plan to implement what seems just theoretical is important. My next question is for you, Federica. He mentioned, Xavier, that many of the countries, the host countries, they themselves are below the poverty line. I can imagine sometimes being in my office in Uganda, getting a hotspot is incredible. And, you know, we've paid our internet bill, yet still I can't get a signal. So being below the poverty line, not having access to this age of information and technological advancement, how important is it for refugees to have access to digital skills development?
Yeah, thank you. I just would like to say that the reason why Kofi kindly invited me to be here today is that last year I was the co-director for the World Development Report on the changing nature of work. So we precisely looked at what is changing, what changes technology is bringing, right, to the world of work, and it's a discussion. It was at least totally dominated by, you know, we're going to face jobless growth in the future because, right, technology is here to take our jobs. But then it turns out that in a region like Africa, those jobs don't even exist, right? So you have, you know, industrialization is not even there. But an aspect that instead is becoming more and more important is linked to the digital technology that instead is bringing a lot of opportunities, even in a region like Africa where industrialization never happened. And that, we see for the first time that not only high-income countries, but emerging countries are leading this technology. Kenya is leading in digital payment. And this is revolutionary because it happened very soon, unlike in the past, where it took 70, 80 years for technology to land in, emerging economies, and in some never landed. So it is important to have access to those technology, because one important change they're bringing to the market is that if in the past you think of a firm running a business, right, that physical presence of that firm was required. Today with digital technology is no longer required. So they can run business in a country without being physically present, which opens a lot of opportunities if people have, the right skills, the right ideas, and the right infrastructure. I agree that, digital are not just silver bullet. Like, you still need to have not just internet, you need to have broadband infrastructure. Like, you have a lot of countries where people have mobile phones, but that's not enough, because you need those infrastructure that allow you to, have digital payments. Because without that, those huge digital platforms, they're bringing jobs, connecting people all over the world, won't be in your country. Again, not physically. This still exists on the cloud. And, I was very pleased to see all these entrepreneurs. It would be so great, right, to connect them through those digital technology. And instead of selling, I forgot the name of that thing that they were frying, just locally, that can become, the next, wherever, Alibaba or the next Google, because that's how it starts with those technology. They are startups. People have a nice idea, they're entrepreneurs, and they become global giants. They're just powered by that. But just, it is great to have access to those skills. And of course, we know that IT jobs are the most unfilled in the world. So it is great to give people those skills, but it's not just that. I totally agree on the focus on basic human capital and early childhood development. I was so glad you mentioned that, because between 3 to 6 is the age when we learn to learn. So if we fail that, because learning is cumulative, we'll never build resilient skills. We won't be able to do it. So focusing on that age is extremely important to become productive workers, to take up of opportunities. It is a world that is changing very fast. You can learn digital skills needed today. In 2 months, they could be obsolete. Think about the job of the app developer, right? That's a job that landed in labor market literally overnight. Now you have 4 million app developers in India, for example. But things change very fast. So being adaptable workers is very important. And you are adaptable and you build the skills that are in demand in the market when you receive proper early childhood development, when you have basic human capital. Education is very important. And of course, it's hard to imagine sometimes when we think about, well, you need to learn digital skills, and we saw from your picture, how these people live. So I would just like to close with one more thing that is very important when we think about skills, which is social protection, right? Of course, if you are there and you wait for your mom to finish frying and you need to go sell those things in the market, you can focus on skill, you can focus on education. So having, lifting everybody, especially the more disenfranchised, to a level where they can focus, right? Where they don't need to worry about these things is very important. So social assistance, social insurance are key. And I agree with Javier that, clearly, if you live in a region where you don't have digital infrastructure, is poor, it's hard to imagine how from there we can move to skills, because then, yes, you might improve people employability, but you don't have employment in that country.
Absolutely, thank you. I think your point brings out a connection with Dorothy's photographic essay. The refugee communities, they're a very young population. And I think that you mentioned that now is the time to give them access to these opportunities, and that we can't wait, because we would essentially leave an entire generation without the ability to access the future. So I want to end with Matthew, and we want to get to the audience, and we want to, maybe our World Bank Live audience may have a few questions for us as well. I don't want to forget them. But Matthew, I just want to ask you, what is the role of the international community? What is it that we can do to help bolster the support of your work with UNHCR, and how can we help?
Well, thank you. And there are many, many, many ways that folks can help. Our principal, in addition to the emergency relief, our principal objective and mandate is to help find a durable solution for the refugee, to find what works. And let's not forget that the #1 choice of refugees is to return home, which is why refugees flee usually to just on the other side of the border, which again is why you have in Africa, poorer countries hosting poorer refugees. And that's going to take a lot of work, not to sound pie in the sky, but honestly, a lot of political courage and a lot of political work. Refugee crises today in the world are caused by conflict and political and other conflict. It's relatively easy overall, if there's a natural disaster, to rebuild and regroup. It's the political conflict that keeps going on. A second solution that's found is some sort of integration, which is what we've been talking about and what a number of the pictures are, where individuals, maybe for a short period or a longer period of time, are able to integrate and be part of a different community. And welcoming them into your community and working with refugees is an important way to help. And the third option for the very most vulnerable, and people don't appreciate that this is less than 0.5% of all refugees are actually resettled in a third country, which is what you see here in the United States. And there are a lot of very welcoming communities and others here. The United States and Canada remain the largest recipients of resettled refugees in the world, but it's a very small number. This last year, only 92,000 refugees found third country resettlement. So I think the ways that all of you can help is, #1, attention. As has been brought out here today, I've talked numbers and countries and so on, but every refugee is a person. It's a mother, it's a brother, it's your cousin, it's someone, it's a human. And they, we, you, me. So appreciate and welcome that, the skills, the attentions that the people bring. And another is just to basically continue that support in today's world where there's a lot of loud voices about nativism and insularity. Speak out and appreciate that situation. We really, as UNHCR, we are totally dependent on voluntary contributions. We're not a UN agency that sort of taxes a country. In fact, it's a voluntary contribution from the private sector, from the corporate sector, from the World Bank, and from very generous governments like the United States, the EU, Germany, Japan. I can't name them all because there are quite a few very generous countries. But all that kind of support is very, very important.
Wow. And we want to thank all of you for being here today. Even your presence, your attendance. Clap for yourselves one more time because you're here. And I want you guys to know that your presence being here today is a form of speaking out. I can't see you if you're on World Bank Live, but we're glad that you're there too. We want to take now an opportunity to take questions from the audience. We're not sure if they've already been pre-selected. No one else? Well, don't all speak at once. You guys have heard from an array of panelists from across sector, all seeming to be connected to the arts, digital arts. This is an art form. All of you are artists, in my opinion. Art of possibility means that art is about ideas and innovation and design. And so we thank you guys for being here as artists. I'm going to claim you, Xavier, as well as Matt. So we have questions, I think, Kofi?
Yes, hi. We have some questions from people who are following online, and Emir in Mauritania asked 2 questions. The first one is, why is there such a wide misperception that refugees mostly move to Europe when there are so many refugees in Africa? The second one is specifically to Mr. De Victor. Can you talk about the difference between the immediate needs of refugees arriving in refugee camps versus their long-term development needs. And I know that the colleagues in Malawi have a couple of questions as well. So we'll go with those, and then maybe we'll go to Malawi then, and then they'll answer these, and then we'll wait for more questions.
Nice. So I think that first question is for you, Matt.
Sure, it's quite simple in the sense that it is a misperception that most refugees are going to Europe, or there's a lot of news in the United States that are also flowing in this area. I will just, in 10 seconds, tell you who the top 10 are. Turkey, Pakistan, Uganda, Sudan, Germany, Iran, Lebanon, Bangladesh, Ethiopia, and Jordan. These are the major hosting countries. I think that just answers.
Simple.
I think the question was about the articulation between the short term, the immediate needs, and the medium term. I think we spend a little bit too much time opposing both. To me, it's one and the same. We all have needs that need to be satisfied right now. It's going to be launched soon. We all have needs that will need to be satisfied over time. And I think the challenge is not so much what is humanitarian, what is development. The challenge is much more how do humanitarian and development work together to make sure the short-term needs are met in a manner that prepares for the medium term, and that the medium-term needs are met in a manner that does not forget the short-term. So very, very, very simply, just to explicit that, if people arrive and are placed on a piece of land where there's no water, it's going to be difficult in the medium term. If we move them by a few hundred meters or a few kilometers to a place where there is water, we're going to have something which is much, much more sustainable. And I think the key question is, how do we articulate these things from day one to make sure that whatever response is provided in the very short term is something that can be sustained, expanded, strengthened, further developed in the medium term?
Nice. Jaja, I would love to get your opinion. This is your experience, your life experience. You arrived in Uganda in search of the California Club to do your first show. What are the immediate needs of refugees when, going to a new host community?
Well, I think, like I said before, refugees are normal people, and they are there not to be handed over, They're there to work. And I've said before, if an opportunity is given to them, they're ready to move forward. They are ready to move forward. And I think the World Bank has been talking about social inclusion, this year, and which is good, because sometimes we feel as a refugee people, being excluded. We cannot provide anything, and we're there to beg. But to me, I think as much as we've been discriminated, quote unquote, I do still believe if the platform is provided properly, and me, if I have to talk, I will talk in the refugee camps, because that's where the problem is. We can spend time talking about education right now, but if the basic needs are not met, honestly, even that education will not be achieved. Like I will say, a 15-year-old girl who actually lives in a refugee camp and goes to school, empty stomach, that won't do anything. So to me, that's the key, because I was in a refugee camp and I can tell you the situation of how people live. You do a loo outside and you're putting in a tent, and hardly you can have food, hardly you can concentrate. And the chance I got, for me, it is because of education and the talent and skill I had. It does not mean that other people did not have skills within a refugee camp, but someone has to have an opportunity to be able to identify those skills and talents within, and then inside there we can start creating, opportunity and jobs, inside the camp.
Absolutely. When we look at human capital development, I never want us to forget the human part. And so I just wanted you to speak from experience, because people know what they need to survive. These people are experts in the art of survival, and so keeping their voice relevant. Was there another question from the Malawian community? Trezor, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you. And there is my colleague, Jack Beani, who would love to ask a question. So, yeah, go on.
Yeah, as Trésor has said, I have a question which goes to Mark Renault. You have said that Africa is taking the lead of the implementation of the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework. Now, here in Malawi, refugees are still facing limited access to job opportunities. They are still having limited freedom of movement. What have you done in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Uganda, which you have not yet done here in Malawi to ensure the implementation of the Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework? The other question is going straight to Mr. Jaja Bashengezi. You are a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo. You are now in the US. I consider you as a person resource to the Democratic Republic of Congo. When do you think you will go back to Congo to be a part of the development of the Democratic Republic of Congo? Thank you.
That was a mouthful. I think we had 3 questions, but the last question was directed at Jaja, so I'm going to allow you to answer that.
Okay, you know what? I have to be clear and simple. If democracy, security is restored, justice in my country, I will be going back home. We always want to go back home, man. I'm telling you. And I miss the weather. I miss the food. I don't like snow here. I can tell you the truth. Yeah. If democracy, our politicians, is restored, justice is restored, like people live here normally, I will be going back home. With all the talent and gift we're having here and stuff we've acquired here, I have a recording studio. I would have wanted to take those equipment down there. But who knows if I take them there that I will be secure. That's the only thing. But I miss home, man. I'm telling you. I would like to go home. Yeah.
Did anyone else want to address his question?
I guess I would just say with the CRRF, each country and each area goes at its own speed to a degree. There's lots of challenges and lots of things to happen. Africa's not the only regional CRRF. We have one in Central America as well. That goes by the Spanish acronym MIRPS. And I think an important part of this, and particularly the partnership that we have with the World Bank, is that for access to the kinds of resources that help in the development, the host country also has to be part of that partnership in providing various international protections, various development goals, and various rights and things as well. So it's an incentive to do the right thing, and we hope that a lot more, that the partnerships and the frameworks will be broader, greater, and faster.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our panelists. My name is Nicole Boris. I work in IFC and Energy Access, and I have a question mainly more for our World Bank colleagues. In IFC, every time you put up a program, there's a gender flag. So you can flag it whenever your program is adding value to the gender proposition. And I was wondering if you were thinking that maybe in order to push programs or mainstream work with refugees, you could have a refugee flag, and if that ever came to your mind.
Xavier?
I guess, yeah. So there's a question from Ghana also. Says they recognize the great work that UNHCR is doing all over the world and also in Ghana. They said there is a threshold for supporting countries with resources. And so even if you have refugees in those countries, if you do not pass that threshold, you do not get support. And so then you could have 10,000 refugees in a country. They are not getting much support just because that country does not. Malawi, could you please mute in Malawi? Thank you very much. Yes. So what do you do under circumstances? And this is for both Matt and you. Thank you very much.
So just a very, very quick answer to your question. There's no flags, there's what we call coding, but the spirit is the same. So yes, we can identify the projects that are refugee, quote unquote, relevant. I think on the question of, number of refugees, threshold, and so on. I mean, we get a little bit in the technicality of bank instruments. I think it's probably. Just to say very quickly, the question is, do you have a dedicated refugee project, or do you have a sectoral project of which refugees can benefit? And depending on the number of refugees you have, there are huge transaction costs in having a dedicated refugee project. So that's where we're trying to be a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more practical, and just to take these people into existing operations. But once again, it's a little bit of technical cuisine of how we structure our interventions rather than a substance that we all agree that support is needed and support is provided.
Okay. And so I think that's it for our questions. Clap one more time for our panelists. They've done such an amazing job of providing a well-rounded look at these issues on this World Refugee Day. You guys can take your seats. We have an amazing award presentation. We have the winner of the Refugee Art Competition in Uganda. Uganda, are you with us? Hello, Kampala. Kampala, can you hear us? Okay, well, I'm sure that you guys can see this amazing art piece here in front of us. So I'll just try to interpret while we deal with our technical difficulty. Anthony Thompson, he's here with the blonde-tipped dreadlocks. You guys see him there. He's an incredible artist based in Kampala, Uganda. There we are.
Just give you about 1 minute. He's coming. Chance to go to the global scene to thank the World Bank and all the people who support the refugees. Thank you.
Hello, Washington, and welcome from Kampala, Uganda. This live stream is working for you. We've been celebrating World Refugee Day, World Refugee Day, by having a celebration of arts and culture together with our new friends from the refugee communities around Uganda. We have an art exhibition going on today. We've had live dancing and we've had other forms of cultural expression. As part of our art exhibition, we have had a competition where we have recognized top artists in different categories. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to the winner of the professional artist category, who is Professor Rizgoba from Democratic Republic of Congo. Congratulations and welcome, and thank you for joining us today. So can you share with us what being an artist means for you?
Thank you. Okay, for me, what to be an artist is, first of all, it's a place. So no one could be an artist. Me, I got a talent since I was born. I thank God for that. So to be an artist is to have something talent. Yeah, like something which other people something like you never go down for it. It's just something like that.
And maybe you can share with what are your hopes? Where would you like to be in 5 or 10 years' time?
For me, I would like to expose what I have in the world. I would like to have a company to help me and other people, because I'm not the only one. We have many other people around us here at the world. So I would like to have more support for you. Yeah, so that people will see what we have. We have many things to do.
Thank you very much. So it's not just Prosper who is here, but many of the other artists who are exhibiting today. So thank you, everybody. Today has been great because, when you talk about culture, it's not about label, being able to get beyond the label of refugee, and instead you've been interacting with one another, one person to another person. So that's really what has been special for us here about that Refugee Day. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for letting us join you. I think what we'll do now is hand it back over to you in Washington. But we just have to celebrate Kampala, Uganda one more time. Next year. Thank you very much. Bye.
Nice. So I've been charged with giving you all a call to action. This is not an opportunity for you to come and be voyeurs, to come and see what's happening today and not get involved. So the first step is to, of course, use social media. Please, hashtag World Refugee Day 2019, World Bank Live. Let's get the word out into your personal networks. Small, little things make a big difference in bringing awareness to this issue and helping us make this celebration really worldwide. And the last thing is that I would be remiss to not offer you a piece of my own art form as a performing artist. And I just want to remind you of the power in you by letting you know that he lives in you. And so if you know the song, just sing along. I'll just sing one stanza. He lives in you. He lives in me. He watches over everything you see, into the water, into the sea. In your reflection, it lives in you. This power lives in you, the ability to connect. Stay connected. Thank you for joining us today.
Wasn't that amazing? Another big round of applause for Kim. Fantastic job, Kim. He lives in you. Thank you very much. We have food, lunch right across from here, so please do not go away. Unfortunately, we cannot offer our colleagues online some food, but hey, thank you so much for being part of this. And remember, hashtag we stand with refugees, and I'm adding we stand for refugees. Thank you very much.